Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Association of MBAs webinar on Maximizing Your Online Presence, presented by Doug Gray. Doug has over 20 years' experience in the recruitment industry as a search partner for some of the world's leading companies. He works exclusively in the mid-senior management, placing top talent in Europe, Asia, and America. Doug also works closely with Amber to help MBAs better understand the new world of work and ignite their personal career strategies. Now I'm going to hand it over to Doug, and I hope you enjoy.
It's nice to meet you all virtually, at least. What I hope to do today over the next 40 minutes or so is really talk to you about the benefits of raising your online profile and how to really maximize your presence. As a recruiter of several years standing, I know all too well how important it is for you to stand out from the crowd, to really enhance your post-MBA career prospects and be considered really for the top roles around the world, and many of which are unadvertised. Some of you may know that certainly in the UK and European markets, that the vast majority of top jobs are not made public. We think it's somewhere between 70 and 80% of jobs. So in order to be considered for those, you need to engage with your target employers, and one of the best ways, of course, is to enhance your online profile. So with that in mind, I'm really going to cover three key areas today. The first is really to explain the importance of social media and provide some guidance to you on the most relevant networks to be involved with, where you can really maximize your profile's impact. Secondly, I want to try and do what I would call lifting the curtain on the world of headhunting and explain how headhunters and internal recruiters operate. And we rely, you may know this, ever increasingly on online profiles to identify and screen top talent. I can tell you right now there are recruiters all over the world, either in companies like mine or working for employers, who spend their whole day on LinkedIn looking for people like you. So LinkedIn has become the #1 talent tool globally for identifying people with MBAs looking for professional roles. So with that in mind, it's essential you know how to really maximize your presence in that marketplace, and to understand how we as recruiters look at your profiles to put you in the maybe pile as opposed to the no pile. I hope that makes sense. And as I do this, I will try and guide you through the do's and don'ts of the online world and try to help you establish a professional profile that will really maximize your credentials and bring you to the attention of people like me and to recruiters in companies around the world. I hope that makes sense. So as a starting point, I want to look firstly, just look at social media and some of the most relevant networks to you. I'm sure most of you are well engaged with social media. It's very, very popular. But in terms of the professional world, I want to share some interesting statistics with you that will help you think about your presence and where you should spend your energy and time. So the first slide I want to show you is called What Happens in an Internet Minute. Now this is fascinating because what you can see on here is a large amount of data, and we look at what's happening in the social media world really application by application. Now I'm not going to read all of these out to you. You can certainly read the slide for yourself, but I am going to focus on one or two that I think are particularly relevant. The first one I must point out is LinkedIn. There are over 100 new LinkedIn accounts every minute on the internet today, and right now there are more than 300 million members of LinkedIn worldwide. So if you take it as a country, just as a basic comparison, LinkedIn is one of the top 10 countries globally. That's the power of that network. It's impossible, again, to talk about social media without touching on Twitter. There are 100,000 new tweets every minute and over 300 new accounts. And finally, I would mention YouTube, because there is an ever-increasing trend for MBAs and for all professionals to post video clips on YouTube entitled Why Hire Me? And this is a great opportunity for you to put your profile out there in the marketplace. And there are 1.3 million video views every minute on YouTube. So it's a fascinating area. It's only going to grow. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, there's a few interesting stats that bear this out. You can see firstly that the number of network devices globally is equal to the global population today. But by the end of next year, there will be twice as many devices globally as there are people in the world. It's quite a staggering statistic. So finally, just to finish on this slide, it's quite interesting. It says in 2015 it would take you 5 years to view all video crossing IP networks each second. So we really can see the impact that the digital marketplace has. Now, in terms of the day, if we look at the most popular and the most relevant to you in terms of social media, I'm going to ignore Pinterest for a moment, but certainly Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter are absolutely essential. And I thought you might be interested to see the gender differences here. Facebook is 42% male, 58% female. Twitter, 36% male and 64% female. So we've got a greater female engagement on those two social media platforms. I think the interesting point here is that LinkedIn is completely the other way around, and the majority of interfaces on LinkedIn are through men. That doesn't mean women are not important. Obviously, they're absolutely fundamental. And for me, as a recruiter, the way I treat these different social media platforms is quite simple. I think LinkedIn is a grown-up version of Facebook. And this is where the professional interaction takes place. I wouldn't use Facebook in the same way I use LinkedIn. What we're going to show you now is a very quick 2-minute video clip. It's just going to talk about the background of social media, just to try and put all this in context.
On June 30th, the world celebrates the 5th annual Social Media Day. To honor this day, Mashable surveyed its audience to find out how people are using social media in 2014. The survey comprised more than 4,700 respondents from 120 nations, with 5 countries making up nearly 67% of all responses. Men made up about 55% of the survey takers, and roughly 80% were between the ages of 18 and 44. Let's take a look at the numbers. What was the first social network you joined? While almost 27% of takers started on MySpace, a whopping 40% were introduced to social media through Facebook. And while there's always a first social platform for everyone, more than 77% of respondents are now using 2 to 5 social networks every week. Though you might be on multiple networks these days, you usually have a favorite. For 43% of survey takers, Facebook is a necessity, with Twitter behind at 21%. While Facebook seems to be vitally important to some, more than 18% said they'd do just fine if it didn't exist. Google Plus was a close second. So is Facebook fatigue real? We asked survey takers if the social network they use most has changed in the past 12 months. 69% said yes. Of those who said yes, more than 66% said they were using Facebook the most a year ago, with only about 16% favoring Twitter. With more and more social platforms entering the field today, many are using social media just for a specific task, like sharing photos and videos, or sending messages and telling secrets, instead of using them as an all-in-one destination. The world of social media has changed tremendously since the first Social Media Day, and we can't wait to see what changes the next 5 years bring. Happy Social Media Day from Mashable.
Okay, I hope you found that video stimulating and interesting. There will be more videos during this webinar as well for you to enjoy. So I hope you find them useful, and I hope you find them food for thought. But just to reiterate 1 or 2 of those key points, I put a slide up here which are the most popular social media sites in terms of users. Now, I've already mentioned to you that LinkedIn has 300 million users and growing. Twitter, in case you don't know, has something like 500 million users. And of course, the 2 really big ones are Facebook and YouTube. So for me, as a recruiter, this is where I spend my time. This is where I'm looking at people's online profiles. This is how I'm starting to engage with my audience. Just bear in mind that 20 odd years ago, before the advent of social media in the digital world, employers would come to me as a headhunter because I would tell them that my database of professionals was a lot bigger than somebody else's. Whereas the reality today is that with the advent of LinkedIn particularly, we almost have a global database, a full global database of professionals at our fingertips. And the skill becomes more about investigating and interrogating that database than it does in actually having the database itself. So one of the things I'm going to do later in this webinar is give you a mini LinkedIn masterclass as to how you can really raise your profile and come to my attention. Okay. But LinkedIn aside, obviously Twitter and Facebook are equally important. I've just put an example here of some of the social media usages we have as a resourcing business. Now, typically we will broadcast jobs that we're working on for our employers, but we will also broadcast industry information and anything that's pertinent to our world of hiring. Of course, it will be different for you given your own personal imperatives. Now, I guess the important thing for you as you're thinking about social media and how you use it and how you think about your post-MBA future is what are employers looking for on social media. So we've put some interesting statistics here for you, which I hope you find interesting. 37% of your prospective employers are looking you up on Facebook. And they're looking at this from several perspectives. One is from a professional point of view, but the other is to get a real feel for you as a person. What's your personal brand? What is it that you're interested in? What are you doing? What they're really looking for, I suppose, is to see what the cultural fit is between you and the roles in your organization. Talking of LinkedIn, it's essential, and we'll come on to this later, that your profile picture is right. It needs to be smiley and professional, ideally. It sounds corny, but you get one chance to make a first impression, but it's true. And as humans, we will engage with each other's pictures of faces quite readily, and we will draw conclusions from that. But we're also looking for your work experiences, your current employment, and what networks you're involved with. In particular on LinkedIn, we're looking to see consistent periods of employment. We're all frightened, I think, in the recruitment industry of what we call job hoppers, people that move around rapidly between roles. It's quite okay to be in full-time studentship, in full-time education. That's absolutely great. I think as employers we recognize and value that, but you need to make that very, very clear within your profile. Okay, so there's some very, very interesting things going on. We've got a very quick video to show you here. The video itself is regarding a US hiring convention in a US university, but we'll show it to you quickly now.
In terms of advertising our job openings and company information, we use Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and where our interns this summer tried to get us into Vine. We're working on it, but might be a slow and steady process for it with that. Resumes for entry-level jobs should be one page, but you can add more on a LinkedIn site. Just seeing everything that you've done in your different jobs, maybe some things that aren't on your resume, just really showing us to kind of organize, put together, and really develop all your skills on that.
So Comcast, we typically use Twitter most frequently to advertise our postings, and we also use LinkedIn pretty heavily to publicize new openings that we have across our divisions. The most impressive thing is when someone clearly states what their brand is, and they really define who they are both professionally and personally, and what they're good at as well as where they see themselves heading. When I see that captured, in a profile or in messages that they deliver, that really impresses me as a recruiter.
We use LinkedIn a lot to source candidates, to look up information, what clubs, organizations they're involved in, their major, maybe any internships they've had. That's the one that we use the most.
Making sure it's professional, but also mixing it with, if you're a Phillies fan, perhaps, or going over basketball updates, just so show you have a personality. Complete profiles that you took some time, put some thought into this profile. You didn't just throw student at Villanova up there and walk away from it.
On social media, don't be inappropriate, I guess you could say, especially on Facebook and Twitter. It's really easy to put up pictures and for me to find pictures. So when you're looking for the job, maybe clean up that profile, make it private or anything like that, but just definitely don't post any inappropriate pictures that who somebody doesn't know you personally could find on the internet.
Absolutely don't be afraid to reach out. As an alum myself, I love hearing from students. If you have questions about social media or about people links or your job search in general.
Okay, I hope you found that interesting. Just so you know, I do realize that there is a time lag between the sound and the video, so apologies for the technical hitches, but I think the important thing is you get to hear the sound and you get to hear the messages the speakers are talking about. They've got some good things to say, so if there's a bit of a missync between the pictures and the voice, don't worry too much about that. The important thing is you get to hear the speakers. And this is particularly true as we come into the next stage of the webinar, because I really want to talk to you about some of the insider tips to get hired. And to do this, I've got another short video to show you. It's an American recruiter who talks about the do's and don'ts of your online profile. It's really, really interesting. It's very important, and I think you'll get some great tips from this particular clip.
Hey guys, it's Jordy from 1 Degree Hire. There are a few guarantees in life. Here's one though. If a hiring manager is considering inviting you in for an interview, the first thing she will do is Google your name to see what pops up. In addition, she's probably going to search for you on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. She's trying to uncover additional information, both positive and negative, anything that can help her make a better, more educated decision on you as a potential employee. It's in your interest that she find you, so don't be elusive. You see, a resume only tells a limited amount about you. Plus, resumes of first-time job hunters are often so generic that it's very difficult to get a good read on someone. Reading a Facebook page, on the other hand, can provide a valuable sneak peek at what the applicant is really like. Here are 4 suggestions describing how you can take control of your online brand and use it to your advantage. Do a great job with this and you'll demonstrate to potential employers that you are a top-notch recruit. If you don't already have a LinkedIn account, get one today. Answer all the profile questions so your page is 100% complete. Load a professional picture of yourself, your most up-to-date resume and work examples, and join industry groups. Also, make sure to get lots of recommendations. If you really want to impress an employer, film a 1-minute video of yourself and feature it on your page. Talk about challenges you've overcome, your proudest achievement, and why you want to work in the particular field. 2. Start a blog on WordPress. It's free and gives hiring managers a glimpse at how well you write and express yourself. Discuss topics that interest you. Include an About Me section to tell your story and shed a positive light on your life. Be original and creative at how you portray yourself. It's a good idea to post your resume and past examples of your work too. Large gaps between posts demonstrate a lack of dedication on your part, so update your blog frequently. 3. Clean up your Facebook page. This is a defensive measure. Get rid of all the inappropriate content. You know what I'm talking about. Pictures or videos of excessive drinking, swearing, and poor grammar. It's okay to have lots of fun in pictures with you and your buddies, and no one is going to penalize you if you're holding a beer in some of them. Just don't hide your page or make it private. I'm always suspicious when I'm unable to quickly find an applicant's page after searching his email address or full name. What doesn't he want me to see? It leaves a negative impression. Number 4, use Twitter regularly. It's a great way to express yourself and demonstrate your writing skills and creativity. Tweet interesting content that you feel people will want to read. A couple times a week is fine. Whatever you post online, remember to be professional at all times. There's no delete button, and you never want to send the wrong message or put yourself in an awkward situation that could cost you a job. Instead, take control of your online presence. It will pay huge dividends. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the information, and please make sure to visit 1degreehire.com so we can send you lots of additional free videos to help you land the job of your dreams.
Okay, I think that gentleman makes some very, very interesting points, and just to underline 1 or 2 of them for you before we move on. If you're thinking about blogging or creating your own website, it doesn't matter if it's not your first priority, it doesn't matter if it's not your second priority, but it does give people a place to develop a stronger connection with you. You might be doing this already, and if you are, I'm probably teaching you stuff you already know, but if you're not, think about some of these ideas. 1. Include a mini bio at the end of each post. Put time and effort into your About page and use it to paint a picture of your ideal personal brand. People will only remember a few things about you, so focus on telling the story that contributes most to your brand. Use your personal story as the basis for your expertise. Secondly, it's very important that your brand is ubiquitous. It's everywhere, essentially. If people hear your name enough, they will check you out. Maybe not the first, second, or third time, but they will eventually. So participate in social media. Help your projects become ubiquitous by writing viral content and guest writing. If you're going to do this, remember it's important to be fresh. No matter how good your content is, you'll seem risking stale and repetitive if you don't continue to add new elements to your brand. You can't ride one idea forever. Keep adding new layers to what you represent. It's also important to realize that the web changes dramatically. The web is changing exponentially. It changes from month to month. So if you were, let's say, an expert 2 years ago, but have since stopped learning and challenging yourself, you're not an expert anymore. I think as Stephen Covey says, you need to sharpen your saw. And finally, agreeing. It's very easy, particularly on LinkedIn and other social sites, to agree with other people. But one of the problems with agreeing with people is that you're building their personal brand and not yours. So focus on topics where you have something new to say or something with greater value to add. I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that I'll be talking about LinkedIn and social media for recruitment. It'll come as no surprise to any of you that over 80% of companies now use social media for their own recruitment needs. And of that 80%, I know categorically that 95% of them actually use LinkedIn for this specific purpose. That's how powerful it's become in the world of work. To give you an idea of its power, I'll share some information with you here. We know we have 300 million plus users. We know there are 187 million monthly active users, and more than 2 users sign up for LinkedIn every second. I think importantly for MBAs and thinking about your own networks, you might be interested to learn there are over 39 million students and recent college graduates registered on the site. It reaches a total of 200 countries and territories geographically. 41% of LinkedIn visits are via mobile devices, and 44,000 is the average number of daily LinkedIn mobile job applications. So it's a really, really embedded, important site for everybody today. I talked about the geographical and global reach of LinkedIn. This is slightly out of date. This is the last information I had when LinkedIn was at 260 million members. But you get a good idea from this graphic as to the stretch and reach of LinkedIn around the world. There are a few obvious points here I think I need to make. Firstly, obviously the biggest number is in the US. There are over 84 million registered members. The next biggest area is in Europe. But for those of you based elsewhere around the world, I'm sure you'll be able to see how it's gradually reaching into your territories. If anyone's listening from Germany, of course, I know that Xing is the most popular social networking site for professionals, and there are probably others as well around the world, but my own hiring really stretches from the US through Europe towards Hong Kong, and this is where I find LinkedIn to be most beneficial. Now, as MBA students, I think you'll be interested to know about these 5 post-graduation uses for LinkedIn. These are all very relevant to you, some of which are really just underpinning previous points. But number 1, do spend time on your profile. Fill it out completely. Use keywords so others can search and find you better. It's important you connect with everyone. Connect with classmates, professors, past employers, people you've interned for. These connections are absolutely fundamental. I mentioned earlier that the majority of jobs, certainly in Europe, the top jobs that is, are not advertised, and it's through this networking capability that you will have access to those key hiring managers. The other important area here is to ask for recommendations. As recruiters, we always look at the recommendations, we look at people's endorsements, and we like to see a good spread of positive remarks from other people. And when you're making connections with people, just bear in mind that some people will only connect with you if you have a photo. Some people won't connect with you if you don't. So having that professional smiley photo is all important. It's also important to introduce people to each other. I think you can do a lot of good and help your future prospects by being what I call a virtual introducer. I spend a lot of time outside of my professional world just making introductions via email and over LinkedIn to people who I think have common interests. Okay? And finally, take advantage of any new resources that are available. It's all there for you, and I'm now going to show you my own LinkedIn profile. This is me at the bottom of the slide, and this is my Talent Hawk team. And I really want to just walk you through my profile to bring alive some of the ideas I've just described so you understand precisely what I'm talking about. So, in case you haven't looked me up already, and I'm sure you possibly have, you'll know that the first thing that employers do when they hear about someone is they Google them. They want to find out about this person. And the quickest way is on their LinkedIn page. If someone doesn't have a LinkedIn page, we're suspicious, we're concerned, we wonder why. This is the biggest professional networking site in the world. So the first thing I would say is invest time in getting a photo, I'm just highlighting mine here, that portrays you in the best personal light that you perceive. There are no do's and don'ts or rights and wrongs in terms of color or black and white, but if it's a professional site, have a photo that represents the industry in which you work, that it's acceptable for you to have that particular image. The second thing I'll just highlight is my title here. I have my professional title. When I talk to MBAs in the UK, I often see MBAs have a section in there that reads something like this: full-time MBA graduating from X business school in 2015. I think if you want to be found on a professional networking site by a potential employer, it's important that you actually put down your professional title. If I was an MBA today, I would write down, for example, that I was a recruitment professional currently undertaking an MBA. So when people search for me, and I'm going to show you how they do that shortly, I'm easier to find by my professional capability. You'll also hear that when we talked about LinkedIn earlier, we talked about completing summary profile. That's this section here. It's really important that you take time to do that to a point where hopefully your profile strength, you can see on the right-hand side here as I'm circling. Ooh, no, you can't because you're behind me. Right, here's the summary here. And here is the profile strength to the right-hand side. Hopefully you can see that. But it's important that you take time, and it's important that you don't let that live months and years, and you update it regularly as your interests and your professional circumstances change. Just scrolling down. Okay, I'm just scrolling down now through my profile, through some of my previous employment experiences. And you'll see at the bottom here, you'll see the skills that I've been endorsed for by a whole range of people. So unexpectedly, you'll see they range from recruiting to executive search to talent management, talent acquisition, HR, etc. These are all the things you'd expect to find in someone in my industry. Now, we actually take these pretty seriously as recruiters. Some people say to me, well, surely they're just your friends saying nice things about you. But the truth is, if that many people are endorsing you, I don't know about you, but I don't have that many friends. But I have worked with people like that around the world, and I think it's important that we get a snapshot of you as a person and realize that other people absolutely respect the work that you do. In a moment, I'm just about to take you to my homepage. I'm going to go away from my profile onto my homepage itself, so I can talk you through some more essential aspects of LinkedIn. Here we are. Okay, we're all back together again now. This is my homepage. I think what's essential for is once you start to connect with people and you join groups and you start blogging, your newsfeed will become absolutely pertinent and relevant to the areas of interest that you have. If you read my newsfeed, and don't worry, I'm not going to make you read every article, but you'll see there's lots of issues here around employment context. Glassdoor, for example, this section here is about reviews that people make for their employers. So it's how employees think about the employers they work for. So if a candidate of mine, for example, is going for an interview at X company, we can go on Glassdoor and see what current employees think about their employer. It's a bit like TripAdvisor for the employment world. Okay? The other thing I wanted to point out to you on this page here is the number of connections. Now, you will see here that I have over 2,300 connections. You might think that's a lot, you might think that's a little. I can tell you that the average recruiter has about 2,500 connections. So I'm pretty much there or thereabouts. There are no hard and fast rules about who you should connect with or how you should connect with them. When I first started doing these webinars, I told people to be wary if you hadn't met someone before you connected with them. I think when people first got to grips with LinkedIn, they felt like they had to physically meet somebody. But I've changed my mind entirely. So the good news, I think, for everybody here is you need to reach out and connect with as many people as possible who you think are relevant to you. I mean, one word of caution, I get lots of connection requests from people I don't know, and it just says, I want to connect with you on LinkedIn, and I find that impolite at best and disconcerting in a way, and I don't know why they want to connect with me. It doesn't take much to write a sentence as to why you think the connection would be worthwhile. It might be about exploring job opportunities or working together on a particular project, or they've met me somewhere. But it's very important, in my opinion, that you explain to a stranger why you want to connect with them. Now, while we're talking about connections, just to let you all know, whilst you're on this webinar, I always invite all the MBAs I meet to connect with me if they wish. It's entirely up to you, no pressure, but if you do wish to connect with me, please explain that you've heard me speak on a webinar, so at least I can place you. I'm speaking to people every day, countless people, so it's always nice to know where we've actually encountered each other before. Also on my page here, you'll see I have about 17 million connections. Now, if you think LinkedIn's about 300 million people in total, that's about 5% of the entire membership that my third-degree connections reach out to. Now, bear in mind, as a recruiter, it's kind of my job to collect people, if you will. Collecting groups of people is what I do professionally, and it's absolutely important to me. It may come as a surprise to you, it may not, that I spend all day with one of my screens. I have 3 screens working all day long, and one of them has LinkedIn open permanently. I'm looking at people's profiles all day long. So that might come as something of a surprise. But the other benefit, of course, with LinkedIn is if you update your profile properly, LinkedIn will send to you jobs that may be of relevance. You can see on the right-hand side jobs you may be interested in. Now, I know from a fact from meeting with LinkedIn that this is a very, very simple word search software. So if your profile has words, for example, like business development in, it will channel those kind of roles to you. The same goes with marketing or HR or sales or accounting. Whatever it is you do professionally, LinkedIn will channel roles through to you. Now, you may not want to apply for them today, but it's great to be included. It's really important those opportunities come to you. And down here at the bottom on the right-hand side, of course, are the groups that you may like to get involved with. And those groups will be relevant to you again. You can see for me, they're suggesting I get involved with recruiter groups, RPO groups, which is recruitment process outsourcing, in case you don't know. These are all relevant to my industry. One of the challenges with joining so many groups is it creates so much newsfeed down the left-hand side. And it's actually very difficult sometimes to keep on top of absolutely everything. Now, the bit I really want to share with you is at the top of the page. Okay. I can't interact with all of you, unfortunately, but I will hazard a guess and make an assumption that some of you, during your professional careers, have received email from recruiters, either people like me or from companies directly. And I want to explain to you how that happens and how you need to get noticed to make it happen. You'll see here at the top of my screen, I have something called Advanced. Now, this is an advanced button. I pay a lot of money for this. It's advanced functionality that basic LinkedIn members have. And basically it allows me to search my 17 million connections for people who might be... Oh, I'm ahead of you again. Let me wait a moment. Okay, we're here now, hopefully on the same screen. Advanced People Search, the screen is called. So just to lift the curtain on my world, when clients give me a brief, they often ask me to find very specific information and very specific individuals to fill specific roles within companies. I guess in simple terms, it's about putting round pegs in round holes. And often these are senior roles which require several years' experience in a particular field, maybe in a particular company. So I'm given a very, very tight brief of what's required. And this tool here now enables me to go into what I call the passive marketplace. I think everyone's a passive job seeker, really, but these are people who are not actively responding to job ads. But these are people, in my mind, who would be interested in the opportunity if they were aware of it. So if I take a very simple example of something I've done recently, and I share this with you, hopefully you'll be able to see what happens. I often search by title, and we have to use Boolean searching techniques. Some of you know what that is. I haven't got time to go into everything, but basically it means using parentheses, it means using ands and ors to ensure that you can really narrow your search down to the right individual. Now, I've got a client who currently is looking for a marketing director in the UK, so I'm going to try and find marketing directors who are in current roles. I'm not bothered about which company they're in, but I could be very granular here and go for specific companies. But what is important for this role is it's based in London. So I'll put a London postcode in, just for example there, and I will show you how many miles at the bottom I'm prepared to search. In this case, 50 miles for us in London is normally a reasonable starting point. Now, the particular clients I'm working with work in the IT sector, so I can go through the industry types and I can be very specific and look purely for people who have this kind of background. Okay, so this is a very, very simple search, but it's a good example. So once I put that information in, it shows me at the top here. I've put the information in, the machine's just doing its stuff. In any second it's going to pop up. Okay, here we are. Okay, so what you can see here is that there are 394 results of that particular search set. So 394 people have come up who are marketing directors currently within 50 miles of that particular postcode. Now, some of these are obviously first-degree connections of mine, as you can see, and then we go on to second-degree connections and beyond. So where I really earn my money is by spending a lot of time researching these maps. I call them talent maps. I will transfer the individual's details into spreadsheets, and I will start to look at their profiles. So if I take this lady here, for example, this is Preeti. Just waiting for her details to come up on your screen. Okay, so this is an example of a possible candidate, someone that I would say is a passive candidate who may be suitable for the role that I'm handling. So I would look at this lady's in details, good photo, plenty of connections, we are connected. I look at her summary, look at the work she's been doing. It is relatively quickly. I've been doing this for a long time, and I can see she's working in the software industry as a marketing director. She's done 2 years with that company, a year before that one, a year before the previous one. And so it goes on. So I look at her experience. She's worked in the right target sectors. Her experience matches, and she's got good endorsements down the bottom. So for me, she's a definite maybe. She's not a definite yes, but she's certainly someone I would want to reach out to and discuss the role with. So for those of you that have received emails, let me explain how that works. I'm going to have to go back to someone I'm not connected with to do this. Oh, actually, maybe I can. Let me just go back to somebody else for a moment. Just waiting for another profile to pop up on the screen. Okay, this is a chap called David Cotterill. He's a secondary degree connection of mine. So I'd look as to see how we were connected. I'd look at his experience. Again, going through his profile, he looks fairly impressive to me. He's someone I want to talk to. So what I have the ability to do and what I pay for, and by the way, you don't need to pay for this. This costs me a lot of money every month to do this, is to actually email people. So this is how recruiters operate. This is a standard email. Now what's very exciting about this one, and I didn't know, is it's called, okay, let you catch up. I've been through David's profile, it looks good, I want to email him. I've gone to the email screen. David has actually got what we call an open profile. Now some people have these, and what it means is it doesn't cost me to send him an email. I only have several emails, I have several hundred emails a month I pay for, but I only have so many, so I can't send an email to every single person who comes up on that 394 name list. But this is good news for me because it doesn't cost me anything to send it. That's aside. What I do obviously is I populate the boxes, I put my phone number in, I will choose career opportunity, and I always type in here confidential inquiry. And then of course it's about writing a message that hopefully will get David's attention. And for me, it often has a very similar framework, the message I send to people. It will tell them that I've been retained by a client to search for a particular role, a senior executive role. He'll talk about the location and the package, and I'll explain to people that their profile is very appealing and it matches the spec, the description I've been given for the role itself. I explain they may not be looking for a new job, but if they're curious and they'd like to know more and they'd like a confidential conversation, to get in touch. And then of course I will simply press the send button and that message will go off into the world of LinkedIn. Now, what is interesting about this, I would tell you, for about every 100 emails I send to relevant people, and half the job, of course, is finding the relevant people, I would say about a quarter of those come back with a positive response. So of every 100, some will tell me they're happy where they are, or they're not looking to move, or actually this is not the right time for them. But 25 of those people will come back and tell me they're interested. And then it's really a matter of then engaging with those people separately, by telephone, looking at their CVs, until I can narrow down a real shortlist and go out and interview them face-to-face on behalf of my clients. But that is how recruiters work. It is a long way from where we were 20 years ago, and the whole digital revolution enables us to do this around the world. If I told you that one of my biggest clients is in Atlanta, Georgia, the other one is in Hong Kong, then the entire way in which we resource for those roles is through LinkedIn. You can see the power that it has for me. So that's LinkedIn. I just wanted to share that with you. I'm sure there's lots for you to take in there. When you're populating your LinkedIn profile, there are several interesting attachments, several interesting projects that you can attach to make it more interesting. And this is just one of them. This is a colorful, visual, graphical representation of a CV. It's by a company called Resume Up. That's the name on the top left-hand side of the screen. And this CV is actually the CV of someone I used to work for back in 2002. And this is how I first got to see this. Now, it's really, really fascinating because it differs from normal CVs, and I can tell you 90% of the time we still deal in the black and white paper 2 to 3 page CV. That's what clients still want. However, we're seeing changes and developments in CVs, and this is just one of them. I think it's quite exciting. I like it. It's very clear. It's very visual. It allows me to look at someone's details very quickly, not just in terms of their work, which is the top horizontal line, but it's also in terms of hobbies, languages. There's some work here around Myers-Briggs, around the identity piece, which you might find helpful. It's transferable skills and job-related skills. The question I always ask MBAs is, would they be happy submitting that as their CV for a job? The answer I get back is, not sure. I might attach it to my normal CV, but I'd certainly be happy to post it on a social media site to create some interest. And I can tell you that From having done workshops around the UK, I see these popping up now. Every time I go and talk to MBAs, I see these on my newsfeed. So it's very, very exciting. And I think if you work in creative industries, this is very, very important, as is the ability to embed videos of yourself within your CV talking about your skills and experience. Talking of which, talking of your skills and experience, one of the tips that the gentleman gave earlier on was to create a video, Why Hire Me? Now, I've got an example to show you of this. These videos I'm about to show you, they come from Porto Business School in northern Portugal. I did some work there a few years ago, and they're very, very proud of these videos. This is the way they engage with the employers in northern Portugal. I'm going to show you a couple of videos quickly of a couple of people. They're both different, and you can make your own mind up about whether they are valuable or not.
Hi, my name is Liz Roderick. I'm an American from Boston, Massachusetts. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology and a Master of Science in International Development. I recently spent 2 years in Guinea, West Africa, where I managed projects in HIV, nutrition, and malaria. After the MBA, I'm hoping to use both my advanced degrees and my experience abroad to pursue my next adventure in nonprofit management. I love to run. I love the challenge, I love the idea of accomplishing a goal I set out to, and I love that each run I do makes me stronger for the next one. Who you are in a race actually tells you a lot about your character. Some people give up, some people slow down, others might not even finish. I like to leave each race I do knowing that I gave it my best and leaving nothing on the course. The same can be applied to my professional life. I like to know that I'm well-trained, well-prepared, I never give up, and I'm always willing to go the extra mile.
Okay, you saw a lady there called Liz Roderick, and there may have been a couple of visual issues for you as an audience, but certainly you got the message from her voice. And if you were able to see that video in its full context, you'll see it was very professionally made, and the business school actually made a video like that for every single one of its MBA students. The reason there were two videos of her, just so you know, is they represent the students in two ways. One is their A side, which is their professional side, and the second is their B side, which is them talking about their hobbies and interests and relating it back to the workplace. If you want to look at those videos properly, and I would encourage you to do so, they're available on YouTube. You can look at the Miguel and MBA talent show, and I think Amber will share those links with you after this webinar, so you don't have to go searching around. But they are definitely worth looking at, because when I show videos to MBA students, they have very, very fast, quick, and instinctive reactions to the individuals they see. And the point I would make is if you're going to do one for yourself, you need to be very, very thoughtful beforehand in terms of preparation and the actual professionalism of the video itself. It's not the time to start looking at your iPhone and taking videos of yourself and talking. It needs to be a lot more serious than that. But if it's done well, it can be very, very powerful. Okay, we're now moving to the end of the presentation. But before we do, just a bit of a summary on LinkedIn. I think they say a picture tells 1,000 words. For those of you that have seen the movie The Hangover, I think this picture tells more than 1,000 words. And for all of you out there in business schools around the world, obviously you want your image to look like the bottom photo and not the top one. Just a few don'ts now about social media. We talked about the good stuff, the positives, things you should do. Some of the things that we've found out by viewing people's social media profiles. Firstly, we know as recruiters that people lie on their CVs and their resumes. We know that over a third of people lie. And the reason we know this is very simple. Their LinkedIn profiles do not match their CVs. So I'm not suggesting any of you are liars. I'm sure you're all very honest, upstanding students. But do take the time and make the effort to make sure that your CV does match your LinkedIn profile. Because when we see gaps and anomalies, we question them. And we think, I wonder what else might be wrong, or we start to delve into that person's background. So for you, just check that everything matches and the dates are correct, and you haven't overlooked something. It's very easy to do so. The other thing I'm always quick to tell MBA students when I'm talking to people in the UK is to be very careful about what you say. people have fallen foul of the law in this country and elsewhere by making discriminatory comments on their Facebook pages, saying very sort of untoward and rude things about employers, and they've lost their job as a result of it. LinkedIn and Facebook are not the places to vent your feelings. If you have personal views about something, that's fine. But this is a public site. People are going to view this, and their views may not correlate with yours. So just be cautious. And finally, just to go back to the issue of photographs, when we look at LinkedIn pages and Facebook pages, and we see pictures of people as a baby or in the pub or out with their friends, we do sort of wince a little bit and wonder why they're not looking appropriate for the job that they're applying for. So there's a lot of things you can do and traps to avoid that will make this easier for you. Okay. I think we're on to about the last 5 minutes now, you'll be pleased to know. So just to wrap up, I'm going to talk about maximizing your online strategy and some of the steps you can take. I think the first thing is, whether you're a business or an individual, you really need to have a strategy. Rushing into start blogging and creating pages everywhere is not a sensible approach. So I recommend that MBAs take exactly the same approach as a business would, embarking and contemplating its social media strategy. And we call this, in this example, it's very simple, the social media strategy funnel. So you've got to think about, what are your mission? What's your mission? What are you trying to achieve by enhancing your entire social media profile? What are the goals? What are your social media goals? Because once you've worked out your goals, you can start to develop the tactics that are required. If your goals, for example, are to become more findable, and your goals are to become more employable, to meet more potential employers, you may have to use a different array of tactics. And I'm going to talk to you about some of those on the next slide. If you think about the key social media platforms, if you firstly understand that Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, YouTube and Pinterest have a different impact, then you can start to tailor your plan accordingly. Facebook, of course, business B2C, Twitter B2B and B2C, and LinkedIn, of course, is very much B2B, which is why I tend to refer to it as a grown-up version of Facebook. But you can start to see on that grid that you can contrast and compare the impact that those different social media platforms have and work out how you're going to knit them all together. And if you look at this slide here, on the next page you'll see a lady about to point at some social media icons. It is really about a networked opportunity. How do you ensure that the content on your LinkedIn page correlates to content on Facebook, and you're tweeting about that, and perhaps there's a video on YouTube as well about some of the work you've done, or maybe you've been speaking at a presentation at a conference, or perhaps the 1-minute video on why hire you. So there is a networked honeycomb effect of activity here. You can't just do one unless that is your only tactic. Coming towards the presentation now, I would say to you that in case you don't know, once you've created your content, there are right and wrong times to share it. And if you take advantage of the right times, you will get a better view within your network. Now, you'll probably work out why these are the right times to share, but I will just explain them to you. Obviously, Facebook tends to be 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It tends to be over that lunchtime, early afternoon period. Twitter is similar. And LinkedIn, not surprisingly, is mostly updated. It's most powerful before work or after work, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So these are the right times to get posting. Okay. I'm going to summarize now. I think we've covered a lot of ground in the last hour. I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 questions, but just a few thoughts to take away from today's webinars. Firstly, don't be elusive. You need to be found. If you're in the business of looking for a new role, if you're in the business of looking for opportunity, I say to all MBAs, you're in the business of sales. And if you're in the business of sales, you need to be found, you need to be ubiquitous, people need to see what you're doing. So do complete your LinkedIn and other social media profiles, add in those specializations, obtain recommendations, and really talk about your education and areas of interest. Make sure the information's up to date. Did you know, for example, that every time you update your LinkedIn summary, you will go to the top of the list of people whose name you share on LinkedIn when people are searching. So if you went to search for me now, I won't be at the top of the list because I haven't updated my profile for some time. If I updated my profile this afternoon, I'd be number 1 on that list. So it makes you easier to find. I've talked about photos. I'm not going to go back over that. But do use your status message area, join the groups, blog, and tweet, at least twice a week. I'm not asking you to tweet every day, but make a contribution. And I think it's absolutely important that you realize this is all about quality and not about quantity. It's not about how many connections you have. It's not about how many blogs you write. It's about the quality of the content that engages you with people within your network who are inspired and interested in what you have to say. I'm going to leave it there now. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. I've enjoyed talking to you. And if there are any questions, I think we'll be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Doug. That was a really insightful session with plenty of practical ideas and practices for our guests to take on board. Again, the slides and audio will be available in our community. You will also get them sent to you in an email. But firstly, are there any questions? Right, Doug, I've got one question here. Can you ever overextend yourself online, or is it beneficial to join as many professional networks and get your name out there digitally as much as possible?
Yeah, great question. I think you have to do what's right for you. I think if you would try to overexert yourself on all these social media platforms, you wouldn't be doing much else, to be perfectly honest. It can become very addictive and it can become all-consuming. Certainly those who I know who do this at its very best tend to restrict their activity, as I say, to LinkedIn predominantly, to Facebook and to Twitter, and to focus on the core areas. But, there are professionals out there who spend their life and spend your money when you engage them to build their social media strategy for you. You don't need to do that. You just need to be relevant to the industry and the profession and the network that you're in. So, keep it working and spend time doing this every week, but not to the detriment of everything else.
Okay. I've got another question. How many LinkedIn groups do you think someone should be active in?
Okay. These are all very subjective, and I think I'm active, I believe, in about 10 groups. In my own industry, I could be active in a lot more. I decide to choose the groups based on the relevance to me. And I also know that some groups in my industry, again lifting the curtain on my world, are actually set up by recruiters. So they set up their own groups in order to capture the talent in that particular sphere. Okay, so you'll find, for example, there are recruiters who have set up a developers group for Java, C++, etc. And yes, what they're trying to do is just capture the talent and almost put their arms around it and allow them to get to those people very, very quickly. So if you are a rare, skilled developer, someone with Ruby perhaps, then you want to be part of those groups. It's really, really important. Opportunity will come that way. But I think you've got to read about the groups and look at who the group's owner is. This is the point, really. Some of the groups are owned by people you wouldn't necessarily expect. So do your homework on those people and do your homework on who else is in the group and see if it's really got relevance for you.
I've got another question. What advice do you have for students who are recently graduated and do not have big work experience?
Okay, I've got some really great advice for those students. And I believe I'm running another session on December the 18th around how to network effectively and how to land your dream job. And it really is another webinar in its own right. So if anyone wants to join me on that webinar, I'd be happy to go into this in more detail. I have a step-by-step approach because I also, as well as being a recruiter, I offer career counselling to individuals in the UK, and there is a proven, tested way of doing this. But basically, to answer the question quickly, you really have to get out there and network and meet with people and talk to people about areas of common interest. If you apply for jobs online, as many people do, the experience is not always a positive one. Lots of MBAs report back to me that their CVs go off into the black hole of the internet and they never hear anything back. I've got much better ways for people to do that, but you'll have to wait until December the 18th to find out.
Okay. The next question, what are the top 3 crucial aspects of a LinkedIn profile?
Okay. Firstly, your picture. is absolutely essential. As I said, there are some people now that won't connect with you unless they can see what you look like. I think that's just human nature. It's important that your picture represents you effectively so that people want to engage with you. The second thing is your summary needs to say what you do. And thirdly, the summary itself needs to be sufficient to capture everything you've done, but also concise. When you think about LinkedIn's technology and the search technology I described earlier, it is very simple word mapping. There's nothing complex about this. So it will pick out words that match certain objectives. So you need to make sure your words in your summary are relevant, are absolutely relevant to you. One of the tricks I've learned over the years on LinkedIn, just to share this with everybody, is that often I'll go searching for somebody like marketing director. I shared that one with you earlier on. And whilst you think that everybody calls themselves a marketing director, they don't. And if you saw the parentheses around the title, LinkedIn only picked up people's titles who were actually called marketing director. It didn't pick up global marketing director, head of marketing, EMEA marketing director, APAC marketing director. So as someone searching on the tool daily, you learn to just find out how people describe themselves. In fact, we had that very conversation here at Amber recently. And someone can describe themselves one way, someone else will describe themselves another way. You've got to describe yourself in a way that people can find you very, very quickly. That's the key.
Right, and the last question. I finished a contract 3 months ago, and I'm currently looking for a new one. How do I best portray this gap on my LinkedIn?
Okay, I don't quite know what contract this person's referring to, whether they're an IT contractor or some other kind of interim, or they've done some internship. I think those gaps need to be covered with areas of interest. Maybe it's some self-development. Maybe you're continuing with some MBA projects. There's lots of things you can say that you've been doing during that time, and I think employers like to see either employment history or self-development. And I'd certainly talk about some of those aspects if I could. If you can't talk about it and you sit there and go, I really don't know how to cover this gap, it's not the end of the world, because with contractors, we expect there to be gaps in employment. Okay? For example, we have a bank of IT contractors working for us, and they're not always working every week of every year. In fact, the fulfillment rate's something like 70% in a year. So there will be gaps occasionally. It's just a matter of you being able to justify them to anybody. If you can justify them to yourself, you can justify them to a potential employer.